Welcome to the Gooder Podcast, where we talk with powerhouse women in CPG about their journeys to success. This episode is sponsored by Retail Voodoo, a brand development firm guiding mission-driven consumer brands to attract new and passionate consumer base, crush their categories through growth and innovation, and magnify their social and environmental impact. If your brand is in need of brand positioning, package design, or marketing activation, we are here to help. You can find more information at www.retail-voodoo.com.
Hi there, Diana Frike here. I'm the host of the Gooder Podcast, where I get to talk with the powerhouse women in the food, beverage, and wellness categories about their journeys to success and their insights on the industry. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Well, this episode is brought to you by Retail Voodoo. Retail Voodoo is a brand development firm. Our clients include Starbucks, Kind, REI, PepsiCo, Hi-Key, and many other market leaders. We provide strategic brand and design services for brands in the food, wellness, and beverage industries. If your goal is to increase market share, drive growth, or disrupt the marketplace with new and innovative ideas, give us a call and let's talk. You can reach me directly at info@retail-voodoo.com or just check us out on retail-voodoo.com for more. Now, before I introduce today's guests, I want to give a big thank you out to Sashi Chandran of Tea Drops for introducing me and Miss Natasha today. Tea Drops is a women-led innovative tea company changing the culture of tea drinking by making organic whole leaf teas shaped into a drop that dissolves into a magical cup of goodness. Tea drops have fast become favorites of teens, Hollywood elite, as well as a lot of us working moms, me included. To learn more a little bit about what Sashi is up to or about tea drops, visit myteadrop.com. Okay, on that note, now today I am super excited to introduce Miss Natasha Case, founder and CEO of Coolhaus, the leading women and LGBTQ founder-led ice cream brand in the U.S. Founded in 2009, Coolhaus is on a mission to not only creating great ice cream treats, but a social mission of inspiring the next generation of women and LGBTQ founders, entrepreneurs, and creatives of diverse backgrounds to feel empowered in turning their dreams into reality. Natasha has participated in brand partnerships with companies like Hulu, Goldie Blocks, and Ritz Crackers, has been recognized for her leadership by organizations like Forbes, Zagat, LinkedIn, Bon Appetit, and even judged a few Food Network competitions. Hello, that sounds fun. And it all started with Disney. But wait, we'll learn a little bit more about that in a moment. First, let's just actually say a real hello to Miss Natasha. Hi, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you as well. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. How are you?
Can't complain,
Yes.
Getting through the another wild year.
I think that's just going to become like, we'll start having to say, well, it was not a wild year. I don't know when that's going to happen.
Yeah. No.
And are you in the LA area? Is that right?
I am. I'm in the heart of LA, Wilshire Park. And
Okay.
I'm a native, born and raised. I've only ever not been here for college. I went to Berkeley and then I lived in Italy for a year. So the rest of my time has been here in LA.
Okay. I was born in Santa Monica and lived in Thousand Oaks before it was the Thousand Oaks that everybody knows now. Like I used to go down into the swamps and pick cattails out. I think there's a big performing arts center where I used to get really muddy and come home with pollywogs all the time. Kind of dating myself a little bit, but I know that area too.
I had a friend who lived more kind of like deeper in West Valley, and we would like go take bicycles and go around like the orange groves.
Oh, yes.
Like OG Valley.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's changing and still changing rapidly. Now, I would love to talk about California some more because here I am in a little bit dreary Seattle, although we've had our fair of sun recently, but really want to learn more about you. Before we get into some of the meatier stuff, I really want to talk about Coolhaus. If you could give us just a high level from you as one of the founder owners, what is Coolhaus and what does it stand for?
So Coolhaus, it's a really innovative brand. It's really, as far as like what it is, it's just unique, decadent, delicious ice cream mainly novelties. That's our
Mhm.
focus. So that
Mhm.
would be anything really besides a pint, sandwiches, cones, working on some bite-sized things, working on some, ice cream, taquitos. Don't want to give all the secrets away,
Yeah,
but
don't give
really,
all of it.
yeah, but really, believe me, it's way harder to do than it is to come up with an idea. So I'm not actually never worried about that. But really, kind of rethinking ice cream from that standpoint. And I say ice cream, and that can mean dairy, it can mean dairy free. I have a lot to share on kind of where we are with that now.
Mhm.
But I think in a way, the ice cream is a canvas for just thinking outside the box and how to kind of use a brand and a product as a platform that you can really kind of like elevate others or be progressive and have a positive message. And at Coolhaus, we've really focused on like founders and creators and entrepreneurs of a diverse background, and how do we use our brand to help elevate them. And so that's a really big piece of the brand. That's that's
Mhm.
our social mission. And we
Mhm.
have ice
Mhm.
cream trucks, and we have shops, and we're in grocery stores all around the country. Everything from a Whole Foods, we're relaunching in Sprouts,
Yes.
Kroger, Walmart, and then a lot of metro market is, I think, where you said you get them from. So a lot of kind of those
Yeah.
smaller specialty stores as well, like here in LA, like Gelson's, Bristol Farms, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, do you guys own your own manufacturing? Is this all co-man?
It's vast majority co-man,
Uh-huh.
but we have a small kind of innovation center
Uh-huh.
at our HQ where we can come up with new ideas, and we can
Gotcha.
test them directly in our shop and at our events.
Okay, that's what that's really what I was wondering when I hear about a brand that is in really massive innovation space. Like, I'm hearing of all sorts of kind of configurations of, partnerships and bringing in their own equipment, and how that's changing just the structure of the company in and of itself.
Yes, totally.
Yeah. So is your partner's name Freya? Am I getting that correctly?
Yes, Freya. Well done.
Okay. Okay. Now, I read in your bio that you and Freya were both working at Disney. So this is not a surprise when the idea came to you. Can you tell us what was it? Like, I know it was all about making better ice cream, but was there a moment? Was there a yeah.
So actually, Freya was in affordable housing real estate, and I was at
Okay.
Disney Imagineering. But
Gotcha.
I think for me, it was really kind of goes back to my college and grad school years, where I was really trying to take my architecture background. That was what I was studying the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you make what we're talking about more fun and accessible, and kind of open the conversation more? So I felt like architecture seemed really intimidating and like a little bit stodgy.
Yeah.
And for me, I always knew I wanted to do something different with a skill set. Like, I believe you have to learn a skill set to know how to break it apart.
Yes, absolutely.
So I had done a lot of projects around that, and there's still very much that thread, as I described in Coolhaus, of wanting things to be accessible and wanting to empower. And I believe the coolest things are the things that are the most accessible. That's what makes something cool versus something inaccessible. That just makes people feel crappy.
Yeah.
But anyway, I was like playing with this idea, and my other passion really is food. And the whole thing kind of came together as a bit of like a light bulb moment when one of my architecture studios, my professor criticized the scale model that I made, saying it looked like a layer cake. And I was like, why is that a bad thing? Layer cakes are delicious. So I baked the next iteration of the model as a cake. I had so much fun doing that. I stayed up all night without noticing. And I realized, like, that's the way to really, bringing two passions together is the way to make something really unique. And I knew that I would just be obsessed with it and never be tired of, of this, like, kind of like partnership of ideas.
Yeah.
And so I played around with this concept. It was really kind of like a passionate hobby art project all the way through the rest of grad school and then Disney Imagineering. And I met Freya kind of when that concept had become an ice cream sandwich as just one of the practices, of this idea.
Yes.
And the reason I was making the ice cream sandwiches is because it was the Great Recession of 2009.
Right.
And a lot of people were getting tough news and getting laid off. And just ice cream is such a comfort food and such a great way to, I think I just bring joy when things are stressful.
Yes.
So Freya's, I think, recognized that there was something really cool with the product and the idea, but she really helped bring kind of more of the business discipline to what I was doing, and really helped me put the numbers around it and even think of it as a business in the first place, which I wasn't. And so that was kind of the real, I think, ground zero of Coolhaus. And then, we just realized how much opportunity there was in ice cream to, I think outside the box in terms of flavors and novelties, but also we just felt like the brands didn't really kind of represent, people like us as founders, not as women, not as millennials, not as queer women, because we started dating, and not as a woman of color like Freya is. So we just thought, here's just a golden opportunity to just make the brand that we want to buy. And then the ice cream truck at Coachella was the only way that we could, kind of get the idea out there in a way that we could afford, and that was timely.
Yes. Well, alt channel, right? Sometimes that's the magic bullet, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Now I have to ask, just simply because those of us that are not in LA, like people who are in LA, like everybody and their brother has worked at Disney. Outside of LA or the Orlando area, there's a magicalness to Disney. And so I have to ask, was your experience at Disney, was there any impact on the business, or just was there, like, did you get some pixie dust or something that kind of helped things along? Or was that just happened to be an awesome part of your journey?
No, I think it definitely was impactful and had influence. For me, I think I kind of equated to like people who maybe, create a tech startup, but worked at a much bigger tech company, because there's something to be said about kind of cutting your teeth, like where, with the big guys, and seeing kind of what it can become, and having that vision, what it takes to build something, the skill set, and also just meeting people and having a support system. And then, so that's definitely was something for me, because Disney is sort of that, but in my world, I would say just the ultimate teller of stories and builder of brands. And they create stories and characters that we worship our whole lives. When you go to any Disney, park, or the cruises, or, whatever, you see people of all ages, all backgrounds. I'm always impressed by, at Disneyland in Anaheim, the amount of like kind of rockabilly punk, totally like tatted up folks who are just like there to like worshiping Disney characters, and it's amazing. So I think
Ariel.
Totally. Yes. It's so cool. I mean, it really is. You really have to give it credit, no matter kind of what your personal opinion of Disney is. But that to me was, I really believe brands, CPG, food and beverage brands, it's about telling stories and kind of, I think, going beyond what the product is to make people feel connected. And that romance around it. And so that, I think, really inspired me to continue to think about what I wanted to do in that sense, even if I wasn't a Disney employee anymore.
Yeah. And there's something to be said about what you said earlier about you have to know what the rules are in order to break them. I think Disney, that's part of Disney's success. They make small incremental changes that we don't see. But if you look back as to like everything from representation and technology to storytelling, like each incremental move, you don't see it. But when you look back 20 years, you're like, oh my gosh, like they're part of the cultural change through storytelling and comfort, not unlike ice cream. Ice cream has that ability as well. So, but I think that's really cool. Just for me, always been a creative person myself, but I have a bucket list item of I want to go underground at Disney and see how they make the magic. I'm thinking that it might blow the magical experience of going to the park, but I'm like such an operational geek that I could just imagine what that whole...
Yeah, no, totally. It's so funny you say that. First of all, that is part of the orientation for anyone working at Disney. I think
you're kidding.
To the park one day at like 5, and they show you kind of all the behind the scenes, like what makes that magic possible, and all the kind of code words for if there's little mini issues and how they handle them. And I think, it would make you appreciate it even more, because that was, one thing I was going to say too regarding Disney is another way that they're inspiring is it's sort of this ultimate marriage of extreme creativity and artists, but also just business and operations and the way they run that ship. I mean, it's amazing. The parks are incredibly clean and people take it for granted, like you just are used to seeing Disneyland that way. It could be a mess. It could be a disaster. It could be totally gross.
Totally.
But they're so on it. And I think it's like one side allows the other to flourish. I feel like when you have that operational know-how, then you can be more creative. This is my philosophy. And this is how I think about Coolhaus and my brands that I'm involved in. And when you have that discipline, it actually allows you to think more outside the box because you're not worried about the instability on that side. And to the same point, they bring so much to the table creatively. There's a lot to execute and do from an operational standpoint. So it's a really good kind of right and left brain of a company.
Yeah. And to your point, I'm going to transition here. Like Disney is, everybody knows it. Their why is really clear, and operationally they run off of that why, their mission, vision, values.
Yeah.
It kind of bringing us back to Coolhouse's mission. Now, I know that outside of making killer ice cream, you have commitments to families, to diversity, to growing women in business. It's pretty big mission and narrow at the same time in the grand scheme of things, is big and small. Has your mission changed since that 2009 start? And I ask this because, the last few years we've seen some pretty zany stuff, and the real kind of the BLM movement, the AAPI, political stuff, COVID, you name it. Has your mission changed? Has it just been stronger? Are you emboldened? What's that?
Yeah, I think early on, sort of a lot of our focus as far as how we were impacting our community and inspiring the community and reaching out had a lot to do with, changing one's career path and going in a different direction and kind of following a dream maybe that you wouldn't have thought to follow or felt empowered to follow because you were planning on being on a more stable path.
Right.
And I don't know that we put that together as a mission, but I think that was really what people identified with in the brand, because so many people were questioning, okay, am I going to jump into the thing that I always wanted to do?
Right.
Like that was the Great Recession. And in a way, I think we're going through that again.
Agreed.
COVID. It feels very similar and it feels familiar in a good way. And then I think maybe more 5 years in, it started to crystallize more like, okay, well, not only have we done something different, but we've done it not being the kind of cookie cutter of what a lot of people think of, or who a lot of people think of as behind brands. And I think as we started to become more visible as women, Freya, as I said, as a woman of color, as a gay couple, we could really own that story more. And then we really turned that into how do we actually do work around that and really, stand for something, take actions. Because I think like when you have a mission, it has to be so authentic.
Yeah.
Otherwise it can just feel, I think it's weird. The consumer is both very smart and very tough. I think it's a funny combination. But one thing I know is that people will pick up on it if it's not genuine. And it's always, I think, better when it really, really comes from you and it's personal. So then we really started to build out, telling the story, public speaking, outreach, help products that raise money for Black Girl Ventures.
Yes.
We use the trucks, ice cream trucks for Girls Inc. to get supplies to, young girls who live in the inner city and they suddenly had to work from home and they don't have school supplies.
Yeah.
So, really just like, and many, many, I think, pieces around that. And that's definitely stands today. I know we're going to talk more about it, but now that we've been acquired by Perfect Day, the Urgent company, their whole, platform is around animal-free dairy, basically using technology to create dairy without having to use the cow and the land and the water. It's phenomenal. So now we have this whole other environmental, sustainable layer. And I feel like what's not to love,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I want to talk about next, right? Like, so this is recent. This is in the last 30 days. There's been the Perfect Day acquisition, and congratulations. I know that was just a ton of work.
Yeah. It's a wild experience.
I'm sure. Well, can you, not only wild experience in general, but then through this whole COVID shenanigans. Like what can you share about that story that you think, people would just be like, wow, that was a thing.
I think that, well, for me, it was just really important. I think it really kind of makes you assess what truly matters to you. And it's a really good exercise to go through because, acquisitions are challenging. Like kind of this, like they're this big bulky animal, it's I've never heard a story where someone's like, oh, la, 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 and then
and it just happened.
Right. It's a lot goes into it, as you said. And I think you really have to assess like, well, what are the things that are really important to me, to live on about a brand, you could say it's all I care about is a check, period. That's what I need. And as like a founder, like that could be, anything's justifiable,
right. Totally legitimate.
A lot of people never take money off the table and are doing it a long time, and it's so much work. And so that's fine. I think for me, one thing that was really important was, wanting the brand to live on, and then, wanting it to kind of, like live on in a way that, can like really stand for something and I can be proud of and feel connected to. And so this Perfect Day Urgent Company, kind of next chapter, it's just beyond. It's so much of that, because as I said, not only do they have this huge sustainability mission that truly could save the world, like it's a big enough idea and a big enough platform, and they have the money and resources to do it, which was always, just much, much tighter at Coolhaus. So now I feel like it's like it opens up more possibilities. There's a bigger team on the brand, there's just more, the resources and the support for it are phenomenal. So that was really, really important to me. And so it's definitely a time to assess that. I think it's a good time to think about your next chapter.
Yes.
As a founder, as a leader, what can that look like? Having open and honest conversations about it, deciding what your needs are. I mean, you hear of so many founders who they sell their business an amazing amount, and then they have an identity crisis because doing one thing for so long, and suddenly, they've got this, it could be an amazing amount in their bank account, but it's like this shift of going from one thing to another so suddenly, and maybe not feeling like you have a purpose. I mean, it can take a toll. So it's so important to like have that kind of self-reflection, I think. And then, a lot of it is just, putting it all together, and, lawyers and
yes. I know. I don't know how long yours went, because I have had conversations with many people, some people who are mid acquisition and they're in like year number 2 of the conversation. I know it's a marathon most of the time. So I'm curious, why now? Why now?
I think it just felt like we needed something to take it to the next level.
Gotcha.
This business so well. Grocery is incredibly challenging. The amount of, money and time and support and team, and sometimes trial and error, and everything that it takes, to make it, and to make it really work. It's so tough. And anyone could say their category is the toughest, but I do believe ice cream is one of the more challenging ones. And it felt like, we were maybe kind of hitting a wall, in terms of that. And, it's not going to change if it doesn't change, I think we needed something, bigger, in a lot of ways to make it work. And what I've seen with a lot of the brands who, really, really succeed, and the odds are not that you're not going to really succeed. It's like, mostly this doesn't happen. But what I've seen is there's so much to talk about. There's so much there. And this seemed like a way to like, add that whole other layer. And I just want to, from a personal standpoint, look, I've been making ice cream with real dairy for 13 years, but, I am a mom. I have, a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old. And I think we all know that we have to majorly disrupt our food system if they're going to be able to eat the way we do. Like this cannot go on forever. And it's just that feeling like we can do better. We can do
Yeah.
more. And we're lucky. We have an incredible loyalty for Coolhaus. That's a big part of why they bought us,
Yeah.
is having that loyalty and that trust from the consumer, because we're switching all of our animal dairy to animal-free dairy over the next few years.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah. And so you need to have that buy-in from your customer to say, I
absolutely
believe that you can do it and make it taste amazing.
Yeah. Well, so a question then along the line of this acquisition, because not only do I talk with a lot of leaders like yours on the projects that we work with, and then also in these types of settings, but then there's the whole company. What kind of tools did you use to kind of help your team go through this transition too? Because there's always nerves, right? Going to be acquired? Am I going to lose my job? What's going to change? Who's going to be my real boss? Blah, blah, blah. How did you guide people through that? And I'm assuming that it's still going on. This is still fresh and changes are going to continue to happen for a bit. What do you do? Weekly meetings, informal coffee?
It's such a good point. And I think unless you've been through it, it's like something that may not occur to you in that way, it's something where you could be like, oh, I've really got to handle this. This is my team, my culture.
Yeah.
For me, I would say, I'm very into transparency. I brought them in, to the dialogue very early, maybe radically early, some might say. I'm just I didn't want to kind of be different about this than I would about other things,
Yeah.
It's funny. I think a lot of business owners, for some reason, they're like, oh, I don't want these people to see our numbers.
Yeah.
I think they fear like the employee will want to take something, or I've never found that to actually happen.
Right.
I've found that the more you share, too, obviously there's could be an appropriate level, but the more trust, and the more buy-in, people know that not everything in like a profit of a company is just there, for everyone to just take, like so much gets reinvested back into the business.
Yeah.
So brought them in, I would say, quite early, and in an honest way. And my team was really important for me to showcase to the buyer, because I think a lot of what we have is an amazing culture and a team that's so pumped and so bought in. And so, it's hard to be like, you're going to talk to these people. I can't tell you why, it's not going to work as well. So that was really important to me. And then we started to get more specific kind of as soon as we could again, when we knew I started to see like, okay, the buyer, they get it. They're really interested in my team. They see the value. They ended up making offers to every single person on the team.
Oh my gosh. Huge.
And every single person on my team took the offer.
Huge.
Yeah.
That's huge.
So I'm so proud of that. And that meant a lot. And I think it's because they knew that I wouldn't do this if it wasn't something that was right and amazing. And ultimately just, like a great next chapter for the brand. And so, but they believed me,
Yeah. Well, testament to who you are as a leader. I think you're right. We've worked with people across the board where you don't tell anything to their employees until they absolutely have to, all the way through kind of complete transparency. And I think it actually is harder and more painful to the brand owner, whether it's the CEO or a director or whatever, to hide it and then have to divulge it, because I feel like there's more, I'm going to use a word, it might be overused in this scenario, but it almost creates a kind of trauma. Anybody that's been employed since before the 2008 time, like there's a trauma related to losing your job for any reason whatsoever. And I am a big, huge fan of that transparency. So that's pretty great.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. I think well said. By the way, a trauma can be the most empowering thing. It's like, I feel like it's obviously like a word with, there's negativity there, but when you kind of, the closer you can get to understanding them, and they can actually be a superpower. So I totally agree.
Yeah.
My acupuncturist says, at least.
Oh, I love it. Oh my goodness. So when you're looking back, I mean, it sounds like I don't know. I felt like there's a little bit of you're setting up Coolhaus for the future, which it sounds like maybe you may not be part of at some point in time. I'm kind of guessing from some of the language you chose, but I don't want to speak for you. And that could be in 20 years. It could be tomorrow. Who knows? But really what I want to do is I want to kind of go, as you're looking back at Coolhaus, at your time at Coolhaus, what are the things that you're like, if we're only remembered for one or two things after all is said and done, what are those things that you're most proudest of?
Yeah. Well, first I want to say, actually, no plans right now to not be involved. Make it as my employer
as transparent as possible.
They know
nobody's going anywhere.
Yes, no plans. I'm very much enjoying this next chapter already.
Yeah.
An end game beyond this is to get into politics. I'm interested in that record. Yeah. Which I actually think this is a great gateway to that, because they're doing political work around getting the technology. So it's amazing. Sometimes you like will something and like you just see some of the steps happening. But anyway, like no plans, of loving this and excited about it. But looking back, oh God, I mean, I'm just, I guess I first feel so lucky to be able to be proud, because I think it can be a very it can be an experience filled with traumas, and I feel like I certainly was very proud, like I mentioned, of like my whole team coming on board. I think a lot of like the public speaking over the years, I feel really proud about that. Just because it's more and more kind of having the literal audience to inspire that you can think differently and do things differently. Like we did like a keynote at like Martha Stewart one year. I've done something big at South by, just anything like that. I'm always just proud of. A lot of speaking at like kind of like underserved, under-resourced entrepreneur communities, especially, or charities around them. So I think that's been really important. I think maybe from a more like technical standpoint, I think each time we've like launched a new item with Coolhaus and it's worked, like we just launched these cones really like a year ago, and it like, even though it's obviously takes so much more, it always feels like longer.
I know it.
That probably better than anyone. But it's always like, it's this huge vulnerability, you're like putting this thing out there and it could totally fail. And each time we do that and we get the trust, kind of that feedback back, like, okay, we believe you to do something, that you're doing something cool with this very new item. And then with dairy free before that was like, I think a really big accomplishment.
Yeah.
Whole Foods is a relationship that I'm just really proud of in general, compared to like the number 3 or 4 novelty brands so cool. Nationally. Yeah. And those other brands are obviously much, much bigger than us and have much, much more capital at play. So, getting into Whole Foods for the first time, like that meant so much at the time.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think my kids, and like that they kind of know what I do and that they think it's cool. I mean, I'm old enough to understand. He's almost like too loyal. Like we were picking up his sister at daycare, and this guy comes by pushing the ice cream cart. It's like a tough job. You're walking around the neighborhood, ice cream. It's not going to be that lucrative, and it's so much work on your feet. And then he goes like, "Hey, I don't like your ice cream." Like, Mama Tosh, she's the only best ice cream, like, and I'm like, oh my God, no, it's okay. Like, they can also be okay. It's a different audience, different market, different price point. But yeah, like I really feel proud, like they, especially him, because he's older, he sees and understands it, and like, thinks it's amazing. And I'm proud of what I do. So it's nice to kind of see that reflected back. Yeah.
I love that being a mom is up there in the looking back of your business.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
That's pretty rad. Yeah. And you've already talked a little bit about what's next for Coolhaus and you. Is that where the acting comes in for the politics? I'm just curious.
Yeah. Right. I think, my kind of goal for like, my next chapter kind of I see as like a post business, because I love being in business. I love the like we were talking about earlier with Disney, the combination of like, operations and there's the finance operations side, but then there's this creativity, problem solving side, particularly with entrepreneurship. And I love that. And it's allowed me to, I think, unleash a lot of my creative powers, and I'm having fun. And I think that's so important.
Yeah.
But I think what interests me about politics, and sounds very naive, but I do believe it's true on a fundamental level, is, with a business, at the end of the day, it is about, it's always about the bottom line. Like it can't do all these great things. It can't be a platform for things, even if there's not a business to speak of that can function, long term. And so that does have to be kind of a North Star of so many things.
Yes.
And politics, it's about your constituents and representing them and what do they want, and making it happen. And of course there's money involved, there's fundraising and there's budgets, but like, to me, the core thing is that. And I would be excited to take what I see as a very similar skill set to running a business and apply it to the political world, but have this different kind of spirit behind it.
Agreed. Yeah. I, at one point, had similar ambitions. I worked on for a while and just burned out on it. I have a thing about overturning the Electoral College.
Oh yeah. Great cause. Yeah.
The speed for me on the politics side is one that I struggle with, and I think probably is my opt-out, right? In business, I have a little bit more control over how things change.
Yeah. It's true. It's very true.
Yeah. But I applaud that for you. What new product is on that you can share for us is on its way out the door that we should be primed for the pump on?
Well, let's see. So we've got our dairy-free minis launching at Sprouts.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's a cookie dough, chocolate chip cookie, and a snickerdoodle horchata.
Okay.
We have minis in dairy, which will become animal-free dairy, but for now they're dairy, and they are amazing, and they're a perfect size. They're half of our like iconic size that we're kind of more started with in our known size. It's exactly half, snackable, shareable, family friendly. Launching at Sprouts all across the country, and then we're launching at Whole Foods, gluten-free and dairy-free sandwich. It's actually in between the mini and the big.
Ooh, I love that.
So it's still more like a single serve, but it's a little smaller, and it's so good. I mean, you're not going to miss the dairy or the gluten, and I wouldn't launch it if I couldn't say that. And there's really nothing like it. There's really nothing like it on that premium kind of front. So that's really major. And then we will be also launching in Asia, like leading up to summer in a big way. I mean, we've had like little distribution opportunities there over the years, but this is a bigger, like, concerted effort to launch Coolhaus in Asia, Singapore, and other parts of the continent, and really have like a team out there that's behind it and that's making the magic happen. This is like kind of a little bit of spraying and praying, not to.
It's a big area, and there's a lot of cultures in Asia. So I was going to say, you're probably going towards. Well, I would assume you're going more. This is maybe a bad assumption, towards those more French colonized areas where ice cream would be a little bit more part of the culture, but I could be wrong.
It's pretty popular everywhere, and it's also uniquely it's one of the few parts, like, this is like not like this in Europe at all, or obviously in the US, like people expect the brands to be local, and Asia there's really not the local industry, so everything's imported, everything's international.
Anyways,
so there's the general spirit of like, what's the cool,
interesting,
interesting place. And it's funny, you would think it'd be all about dairy free, because there's a pretty high rate of lactose intolerance, but they actually love dairy. So this is going to be the animal-free dairy, as opposed to plant-based line. Cocoa butter. This is really so like
curious.
Dairy is like what they see as like the cool exotic thing that's being like brought in.
You're getting the mouthfeel without the digestion distress. That's kind of cool. I like that. Because who doesn't love that full fat? Like, that's what, for me, like, give me a full fat, soft pack. I'm in there all day long, and then you throw a sandwich on that.
Throw a sandwich on it. It's and my general feeling is, mostly plant-based. Look at plant-based milks, for example.
Yeah.
Plant-based milks are there's definitely some out there that are delish. A lot of people love oat milk, for example, or other varieties made from nuts or whatever it may be, but they're truly not milk. Like they are their own thing, their own animal, no pun intended. Or lack thereof. What Perfect Day and the Urgent Company brands are able to do is really like, for example, Modern Kitchen is one of the brands. It's cream cheese. It is cream cheese. Like you would be pressed to have to find the difference. You're blindfolded. You got your, Philly cream cheese or whatever, your Modern Kitchen. It's very, very hard to tell.
Interesting.
And I just think, like I'm a fan, like I love like Kite Hill, for example, but to me, it's like a totally different, like craving. So that's where the opportunity is really, really big here. And the other thing I have to say that I think is so interesting, Ryan, the founder of Perfect Day, what he said is, it's interesting because you have like vegetarians who are so hardcore about like meats, obviously, like no meat's not okay, but they'll eat dairy all day. And the reality is, like big dairy, industrial dairy, those same reasons why they don't want to eat meat could easily be applied.
Absolutely.
To dairy as we know it today, but people get it away. So it's like really challenging people, to kind of recognize what's going on, but immediately having this alternative. Like you don't have to give up dairy. It's already you feel like you're giving up a lot. You're not giving up dairy as you do today. So I think
I think it's really wonderful. It's what's so awesome about this. And we worked on, I don't know if you know, Puget Sound Consumer Co-op, PCC, here out in the Seattle area. Co-op really has had a lot of influence over the naturals industry for the longest time. Years ago, we rebranded them back when, before the woman who was from Starbucks. I don't remember her name and I don't remember his name now, but he's moved on. But one of the things that our research showed us, even back then, this is 2006, 2007, is people want to eat healthy and they want their Pampers and their Coke at the same time. Like they want the smash up, right? And food science is now caught up with that demand. And it's really freaking amazing. I love it.
Totally. Yeah. It's a good moment.
Yes. Well, Natasha, before we wrap up, I want to ask you a few questions. This has been super fun. And I have a suspicion that we might be meeting over a cocktail in DC one day, but until then, maybe you could share some sort of interesting fact. I always ask everybody, what's an interesting fact that somebody can take to a happy hour about ice cream or your industry or any of the work that you're doing?
I would say, okay, I love this one. Vanilla gets such a bad rap. Like plain, boring. Vanilla is actually one of the most complex flavors for your taste bud to understand and unpack. But it causes some of the lowest amount of taste and flavor fatigue of any flavor out there. So what it is about vanilla is that we can just eat it all the time and we're not, over it. But it's so it should be on this pedestal, and people be like, I love vanilla. It's like this, very fancy idea. So that's something I like to tell people, because I think a lot of people have vanilla shame. And I just want to say that I see all you out there, the vanilla lovers. There's no shame. Come forward. It's a safe space, and feel empowered to love that vanilla even more.
Oh, that is super awesome. Yeah, right. And doesn't vanilla make up of something ridiculous like 60% of all flavor sales or something really bonkers like that?
And that's the real reason, you know? And it's funny, people, whenever they're asking me how I make a flavor, they're like, oh, okay, vanilla based. I'm like, no. If it was vanilla based, that'd be a very different thing. First of all, you'd be paying 10% more for that flavor.
Right. Right.
But yeah, so like, no, make sure vanilla, you're not throwing in something if it's not going to be a star. And that's really what happens.
We're going to give it a crown and put it on a pedestal. That is, love it. All right. Are there any other women leaders or rising stars out there that you, whether in food and beverage or any other industry, that you'd like to elevate for the work that they're doing?
I was actually thinking of, I actually wanted to say Freya and also her partner in Future Gin, which is partners. It's an amazing gin company that is all women queer founders. I'm
Yes.
also one of them. I forced myself to sit at all the gin tastings, and we were figuring out the botanics. But it's really cool, especially in alcohol and spirits. There's really no kind of diverse representation.
Right.
It's delicious. It's affordable. It's very versatile in so many different cocktails. It's, distilled in LA. It's just such an authentic brand. And I think, Freya or Amy Atwood, or Mary, who's the one kind of more from the cocktail, background and working in bars and hospitality. Any of them would be fun to talk to about that brand. For
nice. Sure. I just interviewed Lexi Cashin, who she's a distributor first, but just came out with a spiked seltzer botanical. Ooh. And she was talking about diversity in spirits and alcohol is even lower than in other CPGs. So maybe I might have to do a little connection there for you guys. Yeah.
Just go, Freya,
let's make it happen.
No,
oh my goodness.
It'll be better if you email her.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then any brands or trends that you have your eye on and why?
Brands or trends that I have my eye on. I think that this is like, just for whatever reason, I feel like in my fridge, I'm trying to think of like, what are the things in my fridge and like, why do they excite me? Okay. Well, actually, I was poking around on this site, GTFO, it's vegan, which is like a whole vegan marketplace. And I think it's really interesting because now my job is to also kind of do what I do for Coolhaus for the other Urgent Company brands.
Gotcha.
Modern Kitchen, like Brave Robot, California Performance Company. But I'm looking for like a locks partner for Modern Kitchen. And I'm really interested. I think a lot of what's happening in the kind of plant-based seafood and like alternatives and even like, cell-based lab grown. I think that's super interesting. And I've been keeping my eye on them. There's one I was noticing, like Sophie's Kitchen, I think looks interesting. Yes. I'm really interested in that space, which obviously makes sense coming from. And then I feel like we're going to have a year of like really, really good spicy foods and hot sauces. It's super local, but I have these great hot sauces from, it's called Spez. It's this restaurant like on the east side of LA.
Okay.
And they have like a hot sauce club and they're so good and they're so addictive and they're amazing. And for some reason, I'm just feeling like 2022 is like a spicy year.
Might be. I'm hoping that it is spicy in more than one way. I'd like the world to kind of get out of a doldrums. Oh my goodness.
Totally. So I don't know. Those are the ones that are most exciting.
Awesome. Well, we have been talking with Miss Natasha Case, CEO and co-founder of Coolhaus. Natasha, where can people learn more about what you and all of your companies are? Where can people learn more about you?
Could go to cool.house, no .com, just .house, and that's HAUS, or at Coolhaus on Instagram. I'd also check out at Brave Robot, at Eat Modern, and on Instagram to tell you more. Perfect Day website, that thing's perfectday.com. Will also give you a lot of background about what they're doing in the vision. So lots to check out, lots to get behind, and excited for people to partake.
Nice. Thank you so much for your time today and all that you're doing out in the community. Very excited to watch what Coolhaus does and what you do. And I really look forward to catching up next time. Maybe even catch a cocktail. Or maybe we can do a cocktail. Maybe I have to do a little gin tasting down in your neck of the woods. Hey?
That's a great idea.
All right. Well, everybody, thanks for joining us today on the Gooder Podcast. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next time.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you haven't already, be sure to click subscribe and share with your network. Until next time, be well and do gooder.